evening. Welcome back to another edition of Beyond the Backstage Pass. You are so lucky tonight. You have turned in on a very special, exciting evening. With me this evening is the one and only loudspeaker designer, legend, and god in the world of genius. It is my dearest friend, Bernie Broderick. How are you, my love?
Hello.
So good to see you. You know I'm crazy about you, as you know.
I'm crazy about you too, man.
Let me start off with do a little homework real quick, because you know I was out of town this week, and I was so lucky. You know, I stay very busy, as you know my schedule.
Yep.
And as a result, unfortunately, have not been as diligent as I'd like to be in keeping up with my family, who are precious to me. And so I got a time. My dear brother let me run away for a week and go down and see my amazing mother and father, and my sister Cameo and her husband Dennis and their lovely son Elias. And it was just a precious trip. I spent in a couple different places, and I just want to send out a lot of love to them and thanks for putting up with me and having me in their world, because I am a handful, as you well know. And so,
You think?
So I was really grateful for that. And so love out to the family. Hi guys. And then so lots of driving and getting and doing in the last couple days, but no complaints, man. Just had a great time. Also, you saw Bradley was here today. Brad Maddox, of course.
I haven't seen him in a minute, man.
Rush. Well, he's been with Florence and the Machine, touring the whole damn
everywhere.
Planet. And so we spent a half hour or so catching up. Because he's a lovely guy. He's one of the most talented guys in the whole mix engineer business. Yeah. You know, if you want to hear a show as perfect as it can sound, you go see a Brad Maddox show.
Sure.
And so he's out with Florence and Machines, and I want to send out love to his father. He was in Australia doing some flow and the Machines work, and he got the call that Dad was sick, so he had to break away. And that's something in his 40-year career he's never come away from a tour.
Wow.
You know, and that's how important it was. So we just want to send love and healing support to his wonderful father, and hope that he gets better, and that all goes good for Bradley, and he's got our support for sure. Yeah, and then another bit of love out to the great Kyle Thomas, person who sits in that chair with some frequency. He is out with
they can smell it.
He's with he leaves his mark. Yeah, that's what that's called.
Love you, Kyle.
Scent glands and such.
Yeah.
But he's down in Mexico with the great 21 Guns, which is going to be a hell of a lot of fun. Those guys are killing it.
Oh, wow.
All on fire right now.
That's fantastic.
And of course, last week we were very lucky to have the great John Del Rio in the house.
Yeah.
And we had a good time with him. He's a staging legend. When you want the big show and you got to throw up some crazy staging, you call Gallagher Staging and John Del Rio.
Heavy lifting for sure.
Yeah, and a little just last one, some love out to our LD. You wouldn't see us right now because we're audio guys. So you might hear us. It'd be more like radio, really, without the great Alan Pettibone of Primus and Incubus fame. And he threw the lights on us and got us dialed in tonight. So that was the homework. Thank you to all those wonderful people and sending out love to them.
Yeah,
how
fantastic.
are you, sir? I noticed there is something very special on my desk that I've been wanting to throw a camera on.
Well, I said I was going to do it. So
yeah, talk to me.
I guess I got to do it. So anybody who tuned in last week, we had that brief discussion, said I was working on a new project. Mm-hmm. I came up with this TCM concept a number of years ago.
Yes.
Managed to get it up and running in a fashion that I wanted to, and only released it basically out to the public a couple of months ago.
That's correct.
Right on the heels of that, I was contacted by a major speaker brand who asked me. I guess they'd seen it online, with photos and things like that, and they said, "Hey, we just released a sound system. This would be perfect for them." But the only problem is that our stuff runs on AVB Milan. Your stuff is not AVB Milan.
Correct.
Would you be interested in basically, partnering or whatever you want to call it, to come up with a version of this so that we could use it on our stuff? We could suggest it to our customers for use on our stuff.
Right.
And in the beginning, I wasn't super over the top interested in doing a version like that. But as I started to think about it, had the time to go through it, decided that it was necessary. It was a necessary addition to the product family. So here you see right now on your desk the very first. I wouldn't call it a prototype. I'd call it more like a first article. Yes. Because all the rough edges have already been knocked off. We're getting ready to release this thing on April 1st. Yeah. A couple of days from now. So I figured it was okay to let your audience, let our fans. Our friends.
Yes, we don't have fans.
We don't have fans.
We have friends. Absolutely, we don't do the fan thing.
Yeah.
At the same, this is a little bit of an industrial design work of art. And I'm going to move around here, and you're going to figure out that this mic is dummy. But it's absolutely spectacular. Mikey, we're looking at this. The craftsmanship, the design, the solidness of this piece is extraordinary, Bern. You are a man that his attention to detail is above reproach.
Thank you.
It's absolutely sexy as can be. You can see the switching here.
Yeah, all the ports and
all the-
everything, and
it is
activity and stuff from the rear.
Just so clean and so perfect. It's really something special. Very, very special. And you know, we used we were lucky enough that you let us basically beta test your
the
original version of this with this very system here over many, many national acts and many shows. It just worked. You know, it was perfect. It was an excellent time saver. It prettied up the rig. Everything that you designed it to do, it absolutely did. So I just can't say enough about it. And that turned out, it's first of all, it's handsome. It's beautiful, but it is completely everything that it needs to be. And is it a little premature to talk about the national speaker company that you're working with?
Yeah, well, I think the colors kind of intimate what brand we're talking about. We'll just leave it at that.
Sure.
You know, because there's nothing really official in terms of a documentation of what it is. But I think anybody who knows. Who knows.
Yes.
And so basically, this brand has two products in the market. Well, one's already in the market, one's coming to market.
That's right.
Doesn't come. The brand doesn't provide infrastructure for this system. Choosing instead to partner with people like me as a third-party resource for their customers to go to. They want to focus on speakers. Yes. That's what they want to do. They want to focus on speakers.
And they do that well.
And they do that very, very well.
To their credit, yes.
And so it was, I think, very clever on their part, you know, because I do the same thing. Like, I don't make the switches that go in these things.
Yeah.
Why? Because I'm not a switch specialist.
No.
You know, there are other companies out there, this happens to be Netgear loaded, who do a fantastic job of switch design and development. Yeah. So I've partnered up with Netgear for their AVB series of switches. Super robust, super feature-packed. And it fit the original dimensions of TCM, which was obviously job one.
Yeah.
I didn't want to build anything proprietary. I wanted it to fit into the family. And but going back to what you were saying about the industrial design, it's for me, there's two phases to any product development that I do. One is to go through the nuts and the bolts to make sure that everything functions properly and does the things that it's designed or intended to do.
Yes.
Full stop.
Yes.
Then I start over again, and then I go, what are all the creature features, the look, the feel, and everything. So I take two passes, and that's why you see sometimes I'll have a bunch of different prototype pieces.
Absolutely.
You know, a lot of that is just to get the feel of it right.
Yeah.
And so when people purchase my stuff, they feel like they're getting something substantial. This is made out of aluminum, 6061 T6, obviously with the track. One of the features on it, of course, which you probably wouldn't see, is Delrin sliders on the bottom.
Yes.
So that you can obviously slide it around. It's not going to scratch up surfaces, things like that. This is stuff that really it doesn't have to be. You know, it could have been steel, could have been meant steel.
Yeah.
Could have, didn't have to have sliders on the bottom. Could have a couple of rubber feet or something like that.
Yeah.
And so these are the things you don't necessarily pick up on the first time you design something.
Yeah.
This takes a couple of looks, and then you go through it again. You go through it again. And you start to come up with different ideas. Like the original TCMs is still two pieces, and it's tack welded. The sides are together. They key together on the sides. And then when I was developing this one, I was going, well, wait a minute. What the hell am I going through all that trouble for? So I rotated the seams to the top and the bottom instead.
Yeah, smart.
And now the whole assembly is held together with the track. So and there is no seams on the sides anymore. So
it's enclosed completely.
You have to be open to going back and fixing shit.
Yeah.
You have to be open to that. You have to go back and say, I could have done that. Most people just say, look, it's done, let's move on.
That's not your style, buddy.
I hate to rewrite the song every time, like a musician would. You know, it's like, oh, if I could only write it again. But I at least do my due diligence to say if there's something that's nagging me in the middle of the night, I'm not going to send it off to somebody. I'm not going to leave it like that. I'm going to, well, you remember there's 5 Curie prototypes.
I absolutely remember.
You know,
Yes.
until I had the function, the look, the feel, the whole package, so I could literally sign off on it and never look back at it again, you know? So this uses all the same contraptions that the original TCM does. So in this one, you can see there's a handle attached to it, but of
Yes.
course that's just one accessory. There's a C-clamp that you can do on it. They'll lock together and hang in a vertical column.
Yeah, it's very clever.
They don't make any sound though, so you don't get any line array effect.
Well, I might find some way to make that.
Right, if you can get some angles in it, then maybe. You know, so the whole function of the TCM family is to be a living product family. So constantly coming up with new applications, which requires new widgets, you know, to keep it growing and to keep it relevant. I had a great conversation with an IT guy from a major rental company, both here and in Canada, and we had a lengthy discussion about the things that prompted me to build this, which is about the transitional period that we're in from old analog sound systems into new digital sound systems.
Yes.
And how this type of infrastructure is instrumental in smoothing that curve. Because what I experienced and what many other people experienced was we were all thrown into the deep end of network audio, and nobody was really paying attention to the boots on the ground. To the people who were responsible for setting it up, making it function day in, day out, day in, day out.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, here's a box of switches, here's a bunch of Cat5 cables, you know, have at it, right?
Oh, believe me, I know about this.
And these people were pulling their freaking hair out because it's like, I don't even want to be doing this shit.
I have actually seen the early stuff when to add to that point. Drive off something really scare away some really senior and experienced professionals because it was a little too daunting. They were a little network challenged.
Network challenged.
And this has taken a little bit of more than a little bit of that out of it.
It's
almost plug and play.
Yeah. The AVB Milan version, of course, is a bit more advanced. It is a managed switch, but if you are bought into this Netgear paradigm, this AV line of switches that they have, you basically upload files into the switches that tell it what its application is. So in this instance, it would be AVB Milan.
Right.
But tomorrow it could be Dante. And so you would connect to the switches and tell it today you're a Dante switch, and it puts all of the settings into the switches for Dante. And so it's almost plug and play.
Yeah.
But, and here's what I found really amazing about the people at Netgear was, obviously we all know who Netgear is. They're a huge company.
Very big.
They've got footprint all over the world. There's like 6 people that handle the AV line.
No kidding.
Yeah, like 6 main characters that handle the top level AV line of switches. So it's a very focused group on this segment of the market. And I was on the phone with them having a Zoom call, having a conference call with like 4 of the 6.
No kidding.
You know?
Yeah.
And they were very, obviously they saw the huge benefit of this
Absolutely.
because I said, I sell 1 TCM, you sell 2 switches.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
And, but they were super over the top, willing to help. And you know, obviously all the technical support that's required and any ideas that I might have, and you know, on and on and on and on.
Right.
So they certainly see. It's nice because I think the only brand that I was aware of that was really dipping their toe into our side of the world on a legitimate scale was Luminex.
Yes.
They were the only ones that were really like, well, we really want to hear you. We really want to understand. We really want. And now, you know, with this brand, they're also doing the same thing. So it's becoming super relevant.
Great.
And the last thing I'll say about this is, you know, when I did the original TCMs, I was hyper-focused on, you know, adaptive and Dante and so on and so forth. So it was really audio-centric.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until I talked to a couple of friends of mine in the industry, and they go, you know, AVB's everywhere, brother.
Yeah.
You know, like it's video, it's you know, audio, it's all over the place. And you know, this particular switch design, this concept that you have there really opens up a lot of other markets. So a couple of weeks' time, I'm heading over to Vegas to go to the NAB show.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the National Association of Broadcasters. And so now I've got these other kind of opportunities to explore. I mean, think about it, right? Like if you're in broadcasting and you're doing live trucks,
Yes.
remotes and things like that,
Yes.
again, here we go.
Elegant solution.
Drop it somewhere
That's
that
right.
you need it.
That's right.
And away you go. You've got networking, and then we're following that up with, of course, the fiber optic enclosure that goes with it.
Oh yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah. So, and then of course NAM is coming up.
All right.
So,
That's right.
so we've got all of this stuff now: Infocom, NAM, LDI,
That's right.
NAB.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was like a 2 trade show guy, but it looks like I'm
Looks
that
like you're gonna be
numbers.
at least 4 or 5.
That number's gone up. That number's gone up significantly. So
that's
anyway,
great.
thank you. We're super proud of it.
It's beautiful.
It's like I said, it's going live on April the 1st, and we're just finishing up spec sheets and also with the other TCM stuff because, like I said, it only started releasing it like a couple of months ago.
Yes, sir.
So we're doing a full update on the website with all the new photos and descriptions and blowing out the whole family.
If there's anything that my little effort can do with our audience, or I don't think I did it on the part where you know me from Sound Image and
I think they know you,
beyond
period.
the backstage pass, and Death by Loadout. But on those platforms,
Yeah.
different things where we've got some 48,000 people collectively. Please let me help put this into the world,
Yeah.
because it's something that the world can use and need, and make anybody's show, their operation, their effort
Well,
better and more streamlined.
The power in your message there is the fact that nothing like this exists
Not-
in the market.
Well, we saw something, I'm not going to say names, but we saw a really nowhere near version, and it was the size of a Samsonite briefcase.
Yeah,
Remember
that was a while ago.
Yeah, that was quite some
yeah.
time ago. But
And that was before I'd even announced TCM.
Yes,
Nobody even
yeah.
knew about it, and we were chuckling about this
Yeah,
one
yeah.
particular solution.
yes, that's right.
And there's other proprietary driven solutions.
Yeah.
We did this for this particular application, blah blah blah.
Sure.
But no one has done this broad of a research.
It's almost a
and development.
universal application.
It is.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a utility. I keep calling
Yes.
it a utility.
Yeah, that's a good name for it.
Yeah. So there's this version, of course, which is all EtherCon. So this is full gigabit. We'll also do a standard multi-pin version, which will be under 100 meg. That's good for audio.
Absolutely.
And now we're doing research into full gigabit multi-pin connections. So we'll have a bit of a variety pack as to what you're going to be able to do. And even though some of the systems out there, sound systems, don't have redundancy,
Yeah.
I built redundancy into this anyway. So you have dual power supplies, you have 2 switches, one for A, one for B. You can link them together and still run it as one.
Yeah.
But if you do get into an application where you have a redundant AVB Milan setup, the hardware's already configured to go. Don't have to worry about it. You just do your thing.
Well, you always try to make it as most utilitarian and accessible.
Yeah.
That's kind of your milieu. That's what makes your truth and audio approach pretty much is. And I'm biased. I'll admit it. I'm super freaking biased. I love the guy, and he's probably one of my best
You watched
friends.
me welding today.
Yeah, that's some sexy stuff.
That's
I don't know if it's the hat or the fire, but
Your guest didn't recognize me when I sat here. He goes, "Oh, were you the guy that I met over welding?" And I'm going, "Yeah, that was me." He goes, "I didn't even recognize you now."
yeah, it was perfect.
The
It was
helmet
perfect.
and the whole, the
Yeah.
garb and everything. It's like, yeah, it's a
Well,
bit of a
and then like I was explaining, you were underselling, and I was explaining to the guests who we're going to get to right here and right now.
Yeah.
Because we got a great guest for you tonight, guys. Yeah, as far as I know, there isn't anything that you can't do. At least I haven't found it yet. I'm searching, but it's an impossible. It's the ultimate needle in a haystack. So yeah.
Well, everything that you can't do starts off as everything you haven't tried.
Yeah, good point.
Right?
Good point.
So
But you're braver than most. I've seen you take on some tasks that are not necessarily.
I've challenged myself a few
Yeah,
times. I can back away from.
Yeah, you're not. It's a very specific and special thing. Thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah,
Thank you for debuting your
Yeah,
extraordinary
the first
accomplishment.
time anybody's ever seen it outside of some closed door stuff. So
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
no,
this
it's
is cool.
beautiful. It's a hell of a technical accomplishment. It's like I said, handsome, clever. I think we could take a bat to it, and it wouldn't affect it in a negative
Yeah.
way. It's strong, it's hardy.
strong, yep.
Yeah, and it's well conceived and well executed.
Reason why the welder was broke out.
It's a perfect product, and I
Thanks,
can't
brother.
wait to put it into the mix. Thank you for being here this evening.
Absolutely. Let's get to the fun.
Yeah, you gonna help me with this?
Oh,
Yeah, this
yeah.
is thick and dense, and this is.
I was at the pre-discussion over there. I'm hyped up.
Yeah. So what we're talking about is we're lucky enough to. Sometimes we don't have as much time as we'd like with our guests, but we had some time with our guest in advance of this show, and he is a person that we've been following closely for many years. His reputation precedes him. He has touched it. I mean, it's one of the most impressive careers. I've done 130 something of these shows, at least 130. We can say that safely, and have some extraordinary people on. I'm very lucky to know some really talented folks, and this guy is right in the top of that list of extraordinary people. He's done everything from being the head electrician to the master rigger, really every stop in the running venues, production manager. He's worked for some of the most iconic bands in the world, worked with from Prince, Madonna, Queen, Frank Sinatra, Tom Jones. I mean, the list is so long. James Brown. It's insane. It really is insane. He's a lovely human being. He came here all the way from Utah, and we have him with us tonight. We're going to get into his world. It is the one and only Jack Charbonneau. How are you, my friend?
Hey, good, Vince.
It is such a treat to have you in our house this evening.
Hey, it's my treat.
And thank you. You put in, you went the extra mile for us, and we're just so pleased, my friend. Thank you. I'm going to jump around, and because, again, like I just mentioned to the audience, you have such a rich, wonderful history and career. There's no way for me to linearly do it and to touch on everything. So we're just going to blast it. And if you don't mind, we're going to jump around non-linearly and kind of mix it up a little bit.
Sure, toss it out.
And so we might start from the beginning, but we might jump forward and then a little bit back. And so bear with me if you can. I know you keep up for sure. Can you tell me about your first concert?
First concert I've ever did was Steppenwolf.
Yeah.
Things were a little bit different then. They had 250-gallon garbage cans upstage left and center and full of beer. So you work a little bit, you want a cold beer, you stop, you have a cold beer, you go back to work.
The good
Totally
old days.
different than what it is these days.
Yeah, it's not exactly like that
It was
now.
old time rock and roll.
Right.
My first offer was a gig was with Steppenwolf.
No kidding.
$150 to do the lighting for him and drive the truck a week.
Yeah.
It's like, thanks but no thanks.
Yeah, you can make more money at home, huh?
Yeah, I can make more money at home.
Or drink a lot of that beer side stage.
Yeah,
Yeah, and 250-gallon buckets of beer, and then maybe.
Maybe.
So you came about this pretty honestly, if I understand right. Correct me anywhere that I'm not getting it right. I want to get it right. Did you get in the business through the influence of your father? I know he was a vice president at IATSE 74 and was a professional rigger and one of the kind of the badasses in the game. What influence did that have on you? Did it at all influence you to come into the game?
Yeah, initially had a huge influence because I was working Broadway productions at 16.
Wow.
The New Haven was a tryout town for Broadway shows.
Yes.
So they'd go to New Haven, then Boston, Toronto, and then they'd open up on Broadway.
Sure.
So we got to do a lot of production Broadway shows at a very young age.
Yeah.
You know? I was still going to college and stuff at the time. Then I just started doing a ton of rock and roll.
Yeah, Lord knows that is a fact. You brought us one, and this was a very small fraction. I want to say a sixth of your overall backstage pass collection, just for perusal. And we sat at the table for a better part of an hour and a half, going through hundreds. It was almost like looking at the Spotify catalog of all the, the 5,000 bands you could see. Fantastic, absolutely fascinating. I pulled a couple aside that were just, Madonna. The list is so ridiculous. One of my favorite bands, 1975, Bad Company. This was when Bad Company was Bad
This is heyday
Company.
shit,
This
too.
is
Yeah,
when,
yeah.
right? Any memories on this show? What did you think?
Phenomenal. I mean, just an
Extraordinary.
opening act, the lead singer sat next to me in my lighting console, we call it the Star Booth before they go on.
Right.
Really cool dude,
Yeah.
And Madonna, I did Trust Spot on her the night after the MTV Awards, but they're doing like a version.
Yes.
And she did the whole thing. I was on a Trust Spot right behind her with the wedding gown and everything.
No
and,
kidding.
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, no. You've had some full-on rock and roll moments. Well, you got to tell us about your experience with the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley.
Elvis was really special to me because when I was a kid, my dad used to drop us off at the movie theater, me and my sister, and they'd be playing all these Elvis movies, which were kind of new at the time.
Sure.
With Aunt Margaret and whatnot.
Oh, I love the ones with Anne Margaret. She's
Man,
amazing.
she's a tremendous lady. I had a fortune to work
Just
with
a
her
great
quite a
actress.
bit
That's
later
all
in
I'm
her
referring
career.
to, honey. Just
But,
a great actress.
So
really strong
to
actress.
work early on as a trust spot operator for Elvis,
Yeah.
it stunned me because I love the guy was phenomenal. Let's face it, the king
Yeah.
was the king, and to see these ladies, he'd have all these scarves. He'd toss them up.
Yeah, that was his
these
thing.
ladies and girls from 8 years old to 80, and they'd be fighting each other over these scarves.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like he was just a phenomenal performer. And the third time I was supposed to work him, I believe it was a week before, is when he passed.
Oh,
I was
goodness.
supposed to work him at the Hartford Civic Center again, and it's like that was just a sad moment for all
yes.
rock and roll.
Yeah, no, it was the day, the day the music died.
You know, I have a little mini Elvis story myself.
Do you want to share?
Yeah, years ago, I was into bartering. I like to barter. You know, you can go online.
I thought you
and
said
trade-
barbering.
trades-
Bartering.
Trade stuff with people.
Yeah.
I ended up getting like a bunch of Elvis stuff, and it was stuff that came out of the Hilton in Vegas when he was doing his residencies there,
No shit.
including an oilcloth banner, which was one of the ones that was hanging in the Hilton, and a signed Elvis Presley scarf.
God damn, that's
Yeah,
cool.
and that was in this collection this guy had. I did a trade for him, and I ended up selling the stuff. Ultimately, I got $4,000 for the oilcloth banner and $2,000 for the scarf.
Oh,
So
wow.
six grand
Can
just
you
for
imagine
two.
what they'd be worth today?
Yeah,
Like,
no,
not even
just
kidding.
just
You can't,
exponentially
you
just
can't
keeps
think
going
of
up.
stuff backwards like that, but wow, fascinating.
Yeah.
Again, we're jumping around because your career, and I did you a disservice when I didn't highlight the fact that you have an extensive and impressive credentials in the Broadway world, and in some super huge sporting type events. I'm super curious. To me, the best Olympics I ever seen, and it wasn't based on where it was at. It just happened to be in Beijing, China. That opening was crazy. It was one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen in my life. I've literally sought it out and showed it to people since, just as this is what can be done at its finest and highest. Can you tell us about your experiences in the Olympics in China?
Yeah, I had a owner of the theater, one of the two owners. One was Bo Siegel, the other was Bob Arado. And I helped them put together a Tony Award-winning design team. These guys I worked with just growing up. And, one was a friend of mine from Sweden, another one from Russia. And, so it was all from around the world. And I didn't really know what I was getting into.
Sure.
We landed China, and this is helping them put together their show. Okay, we had all the performers from the 38 provinces perform for us. First time they've ever done it, the communist.
No kidding.
Yeah, first time they ever did it for
Wow.
public people. And, we kind of, critiqued it, helped them along, and for the first week it was meeting at this 50-foot-long conference table, okay? And we had, all the big shots on the other side from China. When we got off the plane, we were met with roses and TV, everything.
Yeah, they really broke out all the stops.
And after about the second day, this long table, I said, wait a minute, guys. And I took all the hidden mics and the flowers between us. And I said, let's get these out of here. You can hear us better, okay?
Yeah.
And basically, we were just, checking it out, seeing what we could bring. And I was fortunate to have some really good people that I worked with over the years help us out. And it was, I had recently been responsible for helping build everything backstage at the Oakdale Musical Theater, which is a 5,000-seat theater.
Yeah.
And my goal was to build a theater just like it in every province in China. Kind of say, Vince, they're better capitalists than we are. Okay.
You
Yeah.
said that earlier, and I struggled to argue with you on that one.
It's,
You may, in fact, be
it's
right.
incredible, and there was some great creative people, and it was a nice event. We were there a couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, it's they really, when you have a top-down authoritarian situation like that, you really can decide when you want to level a whole neighborhood to put in the bird's nest, stadium, and do certain things that you just could never do in other countries, many other countries, and they really, that opening segment was about an hour and a half. Is some of the most extraordinary production value I've probably in my life seen in any context. It blew away the Super Bowls. It blew away
They did a great job.
anything I've seen in any other large production. Even some of the really crazy big rock and roll things. The 55
You've
truck
done 'em
things.
all.
And so it's extraordinary. It's absolutely extraordinary. We did promise ourselves. That's a great image. Right? Thank you, Mikey. And we got Mikey behind us. And then I got to do this. I'd like to do this, honey. I love you so much. I have the best girl in the world.
I thought you were talking to Mike.
No, I love him too. I love him too, and he's very handsome.
You gotta be careful how you
but
follow
I have
up
the
things.
coolest girl in the world. Like and I forgot to say
I love you,
hello.
Mike.
I'm kind of winging it tonight, honey. But you know one thing, I am madly in love with you. All right, I just had to do that. I'm crazy about my woman, and I hope she's having a good night.
Well, so am I, Vince. So I got to say hi to my Laura.
Yes, please.
Okay,
Please
and my
do
wife's
that.
a
And
tremendous
he's-
top
he's-
shelf person.
He's
and I'm
equally lucky.
deeply in love with. We're very fortunate.
Yes,
Yeah,
good
yeah,
women and
absolutely.
good people in our
To
lives.
put
and-
up with
yeah.
people in our business is not the easiest thing
No.
at times
No,
because it
and-
takes so many hours. Too.
You're not wrong, and there's absences, and there's sometimes there's some suspicions and stresses, and luckily our thing has gotten considerably. When you and I were running around, we were up to some no good. Now, not necessarily in our personal lives, but we were misbehaving in some of the ways, and it's such a different environment now. It's a much more corporate, much more business environment.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot less nonsense backstage. As a matter of fact, some of those stages are as squeaky clean as you can get it. And yeah, we're in a different time, but yeah, we've been very lucky in our love lives, and so I get that. I promised it was actually our producer who makes the ads. He wrote a note in there that you'd have a Jimi Hendrix story for us, and like we talked about this before the show. We've got some pretty cool stories, but we don't got any Jimi Hendrix stories. So can you help us with that one?
I was lucky. I had a good friend, Steve Granis, who knew everything about rock and roll. I think I was 15 years old, and we're outside of Woolsey Hall, Yale University in New Haven.
Sure.
We couldn't get in; it was sold out.
Oh, no
Well,
way,
we went
yeah.
back, so
Yeah.
they had cracks in the side of the building, and I climbed up. I could climb anything. I was
You got a
unbelievable.
little monkey in
I,
you.
I had a lot
Yeah.
of monkey in me.
Yeah.
And I climbed up backstage through the second floor window, came down the stairs, sat on the flywheel for about 10 minutes as he's burning his guitar, and then eventually a stagehand came up to me and said, "Kid, what are you doing here?" "I'm watching Hendrix."
Yeah.
What do you think?
else?
Out the door, out the door. But at least I got to see him.
You saw what you needed to see.
Oh man,
You
it was
like-
awesome.
Yeah, that must have been. That's one of those
Yeah.
life-changing moments. I have to imagine. I
Yeah.
have to imagine. And not to, I'm fascinated by the rock and roll stories, but I also have love for any level and part of production. And you've been a part of some pretty amazing world tours for some pretty phenomenal Broadway shows. Can you tell us about anything that you remember about Ain't Misbehaving's world tour?
Oh,
This
yeah.
was a really seminal, really great.
There's some international tours, they call them, go all through Canada and stuff. But
Sure.
the Ain't Misbehaving World Tour, I'd already done some work for the national company. They called it the International Company. And I'm on Broadway doing Othello with James Earl Jones, Christopher Plummer, Diane Wiest, and Kelsey Grammer. And I got a call between shows. The head of Ain't Misbehaving wants to see me. So I went to see the company manager. His name was Clint Bowers. And he offered me the world tour of Ain't Misbehaving.
No shit.
I didn't know what I was getting into. Everything had to be 90 pounds or less for touring. I had to travel around with about $5,000 in my pocket to pay the airline fees constantly. We ended up doing over 50 countries
Damn.
and had some interesting experiences along the way.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
I got one story in Italy. And
Oh, you're jumping all around now. You're getting into the depth of my cards here. But
Oh,
go ahead.
okay,
all
I'll
right.
wait, I'll wait.
Can you?
I
Can you
can wait,
Because
definitely.
was that during I know where you're going with this. Was that during Ain't Misbehaving?
That was during the Ain't Misbehaving World Tour that I had to
Okay, so I'll jump ahead on this one then.
Sure.
Jack, when you were in Italy, can you tell me about when you got kidnapped?
Yeah, I was the advanced man, so I used to have to go ahead, set up all the front of house lighting, put the black goods where they had to be, so that the company could come in, just hang what we got, and go for it. Well, I finished doing the pre-hang in Florence, Italy, and always I went out with the guys after the stagehands, like we all do,
Sure.
And we went to a bar, and they introduced me to some of their friends, and they left, and then they introduced me to some other friends. So next thing I know, I'm in a car, and they take me to the top of a mountain to some log cabin, and said, "Jack, you're a prisoner of the Red Brigade," which was a communist organization.
I'm very familiar with the Red
At the
Brigade.
time, in the early 80s, we were deploying Pershing II missiles, atomic missiles in Italy,
Yep.
and they were totally against it.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, damn, Broadway spectacular. I got to be back for opening night. Da, da, da. Well, in the cabin, they end up rolling this tobacco, and they put some hashish in it. okay?
Yeah.
Well, they hand it to me. Well, I'm not a smoker. I was choking on it.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, I'm trying to get out of it, obviously.
Oh,
And I said, no, no, no. And so I got a safety pin with a glass, put a piece of hash on it, and
Oh, you showed them the
showed them how to
trick.
do, I don't know if to talk about it on TV, but
Yeah.
how to do, we call it pheasant under the glass. You
Yes,
like the hash?
I'm very
You
familiar.
know?
Yes.
You thought I
I've
invented
seen that
sliced
on, like,
bread
a
for
video
Pete's
or
sake.
something.
Okay?
Yeah.
Eventually, after working on them all night, I said, I got to be back opening night Broadway. They dropped me off about a half mile from the theater. And they used to call me Yak. They couldn't say Jack. They say, Yak, we like you. We don't like what America's doing, but we like you. I said, thanks a lot, guys. I had to got to the theater, and I just made opening night.
That is a very rock and roll story.
Oh,
Jack.
So it could have been a kidnapping, or it could have just been like a standard party back in the day. You're not really sure at this.
You just never know.
You
know?
just never know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they just had that crazy Red Brigade flag. That's all that made it weird. You know what I mean? Other than that, it was a good time.
Oh, yeah. The
the
Caracas,
guns
Venezuela,
and,
you'd
you
be
know.
walking through 150,000
geez.
communist rallies and stuff.
Yeah.
We'd play open for El Presidente in Venezuela.
Yeah.
And
Tell me about that.
well, we got in a little on after opening night. We took the girls out and one of the lead actors of Ain't Misbehaving, and we're going to Germantown. As we're driving there, you know, we see all these machine gun guys and soldiers over the overpasses, and we got in a little fender bender.
This Caracas, Venezuela, we're talking about?
In Caracas, Venezuela.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And got in a little fender bender, and of course, with two of the girls performing, they were from the Bronx or Queens, and they're great performers, but they treat it like they're in New York City.
No. Oh, so
And
they got a little
I
loud.
had to
and-
pick up Pat Henderson, but I had to pick her up because she was cussing out this guy, who just went back to his car, and I knew he was going for a gun.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, so I picked her up. I said, Evan, the big guy who played Fats Waller, go call the federales right away. You know,
Yeah.
he slipped out, called the federales. In the meantime, a crowd's gathering, saying "Viva Revolution" and all this other stuff. It's
yeah.
like, and then the sirens come and they come.
Sure.
Well, El Presidente comes up to me at the lighting council that night and said, I heard about what happened, and I'll get to the bottom of it. Well, we found out who the guy was, pulled the gun, and he says, he happened to be working for American University as a professor, I think, which is really strange to me. And he said, I'll have him killed.
My goodness.
I was like, well, that's the same thing happened to me in Jamaica, too. I said, don't have him killed. You know, come on.
Might be
okay?
a little excessive.
Here, try this
Yeah,
hash.
yeah, no, it's like, you know, we're here, we're alive, you know. And so the next day, he comes up to my consul, El Presidente, and he said, hey, Yak, I had him killed. It's like, oh, man.
Terrible.
In Jamaica, something similar happened. We're doing for Red Stripe Beer, a production of Ain't Misbehaving in Jamaica. And there was 2 movies in town, so they took up all my lighting gear. So I had to go about 30 miles outside to these Rastafarians, taste 8 different kind of mangoes, and ended up like renting maybe 100 homemade par cans, okay? Boy, they tried charging the guy at Red Stripe Beer like $10,000 for the week or something. So I get a call from the company manager, Jack, you go to the little theater. You'll be picked up. So I picked up in a Mercedes with the owner of Red Stripe Beer and his lovely wife.
Yeah.
And we meet. We're sitting in the 8th row of the theater looking at the set. And 2 Rastafarians to my left, he was to my right. And he says, Jack, I'm not paying $10,000. I'm going to kill him. I go, what is it with these guys? You don't have to kill them, you know?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So I looked to my buddies who hung the show with me and stuff like that. We created the theater. It was really a movie theater. And I said, hey, $10,000 is too much. He's going to kill you. And so I got him cut the price down to $5,000. So he's driving back to the hotel, and he says, I'm going to kill him anyways. What is it with you guys? No, you know?
Very
And we'd
extreme
be
behavior,
focusing
yes.
the lights, and they didn't have anything fancy. It was scaffolding rolling around. And I said, can you grab that light? He goes, yeah, man, hold this. And it was like a cigar this big. Really good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
So it's like, I liked him, so I didn't want to get him killed, you know? So we got out of that one alive.
Oh, jeez.
That's good news,
I
Jack.
tell you, I can't make this stuff up. I said, I got
Here,
some
try this
stories.
hash.
Yeah.
You got a glass of handy.
I got a pheasant under glass for you, buddy.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I should have
Everything
asked you
is
about that.
answered with a pheasant under glass.
Yes. There's a band that I've always thought was exceptional, and they were cut short prematurely because of some selfish behavior. But it was the great INXS. INXS were extraordinary, and not many bands can lay claim to putting out 7 or 8 albums that had collectively 12 or 14 extraordinarily familiar, incredible songs. And you got to do the last tour with INXS. Do you have any memories?
It was one of
that?
their last shows. Yeah.
One of their
And
last
I
shows.
worked with them before when they were coming up in the theaters and stuff. And this was at the Oakdale, which was a 5,000 seat venue. And first of all, I was like coming around 3 o'clock, and we had sound check coming up, and they weren't anywhere to be found. But when they finally came in on the tour bus, they're walking down the hall, second floor by my production office. And all of a sudden, the lead singer and the drummer, they're getting a fist fight.
Michael and Andy.
Yeah,
Michael
and
Hutchinson and
yeah.
Andy Ferris. Yeah.
And I had to break them up. I said, hey, come on, guys, we've got a gig to do here, And obviously, they had a bit too much to drink, evidently, especially Michael. And oh my God, it was one of his last shows, And I'm not going to speak anything badly about him because I love the group.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
But after that, he passed away very shortly thereafter.
It
And
was,
it's
I
like-
think it was widely conceived and understood that there was a kind of a downward trajectory in the behavior. And that's not, I don't think that's us talking badly about him. He was an incredibly, the man could hold a stage. He understood how to be a front man.
Great show.
He had a great voice. And
Especially early on.
Yeah.
I mean, they were phenomenal.
he could write some amazing songs.
They're a little bit,
and- Yeah, they
hey,
had-
anyone who drinks a bottle of whiskey before a show is going to be a little bit,
Yeah.
out of it. But
Yeah,
I had nothing but respect for the man and for the band.
Sure.
I always felt very sad when he did pass because it was one of the last shows he did.
Yeah, well, you were lucky that you got to see that because, again, this is a band that really had the power to turn, as Donald Duck Dunn would say, one of my favorite bass players from the Blues Brothers, he would say they had the power to turn goat piss into gasoline, and they were a phenomenal live act. And when I'm in that headspace, I'll throw them on, and it was one of those acts you can put on and just let it play, and it's gonna throw out
Still sound great.
catchy stuff, and then it's good background stuff.
Yeah.
We do our work too and stuff, and they're a great band. I was curious because you've really in your career, there's not much you haven't done and that you can't do. But I know in my career, and I've done had a lot of different job titles and stuff, that I had preferences. There was things that I would prefer to do, although I would do whatever needed to be done. That's kind of the roadie creed. But as a production manager, or a theater consultant, or lighting designer, or even an electrician, or a rigger.
They did a lot of rigging.
Yeah, I know. You were. Did you have a discipline that you preferred and that you felt was the place that you belonged? Over
When
the
I was
others.
younger, I absolutely loved rigging. My
Yeah.
dad was a head rigger at the Coliseum,
Yeah.
New Haven.
Yeah.
And
You like crawling
if it was
steel.
if it was something out on a beam, I'd have to clip in and go upside down. There was no OSHA then.
No.
I mean,
no.
I lost a couple of friends
Yes.
stepping through false ceilings and
Yes,
stuff.
sir.
So you always had to
Tragic.
have an out and then another out just in case.
Yeah.
But I loved rigging. It was
Just felt very
it
natural.
was
You
good.
were
Yeah,
so
when
comfortable
you're
in the air.
strong, you're indestructible.
Yeah,
You
that's right.
paid the price later on when your back or your knees or
Sure.
whatever might happen.
Yeah.
But then you're indestructible. And I absolutely loved lighting. I mean,
Yeah.
that was
You-
my
you-
forte, really.
Yeah, I noticed you were getting along pretty good.
And
with
later
our
on in my
lighting
life,
friends.
was production manager, largest theater,
Well, of
largest
course, sure,
amphitheater. You just
we
keep on
graduate
going.
up
You
as
just
to
go.
the-
Yeah, I was fortunate to work with some really good owners, some really good people. And I got to mention IATSE Local 74 in New Haven.
I'm gonna bring them up
It
because
was a tryout town.
we might have already got that, but yes,
Yeah, I
you-
mean, but it taught me how to deal with some real tough locals, which really came in handy. Playing Philly, Chicago,
Oh, yeah,
even
those
San
are-
Fran.
we talked about
Yeah,
this.
we had
There's
talked
some
about
of the,
it.
some
The
of the
great
more,
stagehands.
Oh,
But you had to
absolutely.
be
But
tough.
some of the older established, like number one, New York, some of them can be pretty stuck
Oh,
in
the
their
onesies
ways.
are another whole nother thing,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And so we both know that, and there's a way to operate in their sphere to get the best out of them and get the best for you and your artist. And so yeah, I totally get that.
The good thing, Vince, is after I did a lot of Broadway tours, and after several, you're doing the same cities.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd always call the business agents ahead of time and say, hey, give me J.T. Tucker, give me this guy, As long as I had 2 or 3 of the good guys you knew, and they knew me, and they knew how I was,
Yeah.
Paul Higgins in Boston, it made it a lot easier.
I bet.
They probably
Okay.
ran interference for you too, like with anybody else. It's like, no, he's good. He's got his shit together.
My big brother, he's got that relationship here with 16, and when we need certain things to go a certain way, he can reach out and say, hey, I want to go this route with these are my choices, and can we accommodate that? And again, there's a way to get the best out of things and to interact back and forth with these operations, and it sounds like you really understood how to do that to get the most efficient outcomes.
Sometimes it'd be tough, but usually just be nice.
Yeah.
Be nice and firm, because, hey, you got to do it,
Yeah, we talked about this. The tough words, the hard words, they belong in our vocabulary. But if we can use the good, nice words and the soft words to get the outcomes we want, that's probably preferable.
If ever I had to be tough with an individual, I would never do it on stage in front of anyone.
Yeah, you wouldn't try to
Close the
make them
door of
smaller,
production office.
embarrass them. Yeah.
And then work it out.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to embarrass anyone on stage.
No, it just makes it
These are
worse.
your fellow brothers and sisters.
That's right.
That make the show. Hey, without them, nothing happens.
That's
Rock
right.
and roll, theater.
That's
Doesn't
right.
matter union or non-union. We're all after the same thing, and if they're there, they're after the same thing too.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly
for the
right.
most part.
Yes. As it relates to the Broadway productions, and I know you did many of them for many years, did you have a favorite production? One that you really enjoyed, the work and the show? Like you literally could fly the show and then just enjoy it.
One of my favorite, I think I mentioned it before, was Othello.
Yes, you did.
Okay, now Christopher
James Earl
Plummer.
Jones, Chris Plummer.
Christopher Plummer,
Kelsey Grammer.
and Diane Weiss was a great actress.
Yeah,
She
she's
played
amazing.
Desdemona.
Beautiful woman,
And
yeah.
Kelsey Grammer was a spear chucker in that one. And anyways, Christopher Plummer, I didn't think he liked me. We went out.
He's a hard man. He was a hard man.
Oh, he was a perfect actor. So, anyways, I'm on the computer. You take a go from the stage manager. You got to take the go. The
Yeah.
stage manager calls the go. You take it.
You take it.
Well, it stepped on Iago's line. Plummer was playing Iago in Othello, and blacked out probably in the last 8 words.
Ooh.
And he exits stage left where I was, where my computer was, and starts reading me out.
Oh, boy.
And I'm not going to throw anyone on the bus.
No.
I just listened to him, and then I said, hey, Chris, you just blew your next 2 lines. You want to go back on stage? Okay. Okay. So the next
only Chris
night,
Plummer.
he's in the sword fight with Othello, James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
The sword goes flying out of his hands, hits a woman, just cuts her a little bit, okay?
In the audience?
And after the show, he's a Iago dressed up. He's on his knee, apologized, had him backstage, and I'm leaning against the fly rail. And I said, hey, Chris. He looks over at me, go, at least I didn't almost kill anyone. So anyways, he's the one who ended up highly recommending me for the world tour of Ain't Misbehaving.
No kidding.
Which just blew my mind when the company manager told me.
Sometimes you just don't know, right?
Yeah,
You just
can't
never
tell.
know. That's
You
why you
can't
always,
tell.
and he was a real pro. They were all great actors. I was
Oh.
very fortunate to work with a lot of great actors.
Well-
It takes a whole nother being to be an actor and actress.
Oh, no, 2 ways about that. And that particular production of Othello is legendary. The James L. Jones
Yeah,
Othello is
We had
friggin'
opened up the
legendary.
new Winter Garden Theater. They did a $5 million renovation. So as I'm getting ready, I was training somebody else, my positioning said to get on the world tour. There's a advance crew came in, the next show coming in.
Yeah.
So they're going to black out all the walls, everything else, and basically take the theater apart. I go, geez, I hope you guys have a hit. I just spent $5 million.
Yeah.
The show ended up being Cats.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And they ran forever.
I think I was talking to my parents, or it was my sister. One of my family members was telling me about it. It was the only production they ever wanted to walk out of. It was with Cats. It was just a bridge too far. It was just trying to ask them to accept too much bullshit. And, yeah. And so Cats is you either love it or you hate it. I got to ask you about Queen. Again, Queen to me, it's not that different than Jimi Hendrix. They had a really bright, brilliant moment in the sun. Some of us were just not of age at that point to have been able to work with him. Freddie Mercury, Brian May is one of my favorite guitarists on the planet. He's also a physicist and a freaking genius and a sir and every other thing. Can you tell us about your time with Queen?
Yeah, I was real fortunate. Again, being younger and working productions, we did the first American tour for Queen, which means we did a week production and then we have a show.
Sure, sure.
And Freddie Mercury, then he just sounded as good as he ever did.
Yeah.
He had bad teeth.
He had too many. He had
them all
extra
done
teeth.
later, but
Yeah.
as a band, they were just spot on.
They were crazy good.
From the beginning,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we did them 2 years in a row in production. The only other one that I really enjoyed as much as that was Toe.
No kidding.
Yeah. yeah.
Well, you did a bunch with Tall, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I did a whole bunch of tall, but when they first came out, we did the first stop on the American tour. Again, we did a week production.
Yeah.
Now it's always on the truss spot, you know, and always a guy climbing the rigs and stuff like that. So after the week, we had a great show. My dad also was a printer. I said, Dad, print me up these invitations. I rented 2 suites at the Park Plaza, adjoining, filled the bathtub up with beer, okay?
Yeah.
And of course, invited the crew and the band. Well, they all showed up, including Ian Anderson.
No kidding.
And every pretty girl, because I was
Right.
handing the invitations out to them, you know?
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, my younger sister, Renee, was only 14 then, and I knew she liked Tell, so I said, come on up, I'm having a party with them. And Ian Anderson sat right between me and her and said, oh, dear, you're kind of young. What are you doing here? You know, and she told me, oh, my big brother, right?
Yeah.
And he was couldn't be nicer. And I ended up working with him many, many times over the years.
So just so the audience understands, we're talking about Jethro Tull.
Jethro Tull.
And Ian Anderson is their famous singer slash flute player slash
Incredible
one-legged
performer.
performer.
Yeah.
He has 2, but he tends to use only one of them during performance because there's nobody like Jethro Tull.
And no one played the flute like him either.
No, he
one
was
even knew how to play the flute like that. He invented it.
You didn't know you could or should, that it could even fit into that milieu, but it.
Well, you weren't supposed to.
He wedged
He
it
did.
in, and it worked.
Oh,
And he
definitely.
had a 25, 30-year career. I think he.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean-
Later years, you know, his voice tailed off a little bit.
Yeah.
But his wife was his production manager after I started to settle with her, and they're as nice can be.
That's so good.
Yeah, I always love it because there's no reason not to be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I've never.
And I'll
heard-
never talk about anyone who's not nice because
Yeah,
what's the point?
That's not what
Right.
we do,
Yeah.
anyways. That's not what we do here, at least.
At least I won't say it here.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
advertising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but you know, the truth is, we do definitely talk to each other about our harder moments in the rock and roll business, but we certainly would not share those with you. We imagine that a lot of you are in our game with us because that's largely our audience, and that you already know that sometimes the shows don't go exactly perfect. Say the artist isn't happy or we're having just a bad day, but to hear that Jethro Tull, you know, showed you love and showed your sister respect. In a scenario like an after party, that's some class.
It was
right
pretty
there.
special. It was
Yeah,
fun.
That's
Got a
good
few
one.
deeper stories I can't really tell about that at night.
No,
but it was
no,
a lot of
no.
fun.
You did say there was pretty girls.
Yeah, so we're going to assume the rest. Jack, now I think the statute of limitations has run out, so I think you're going to be okay on this. But I know that you used to sometimes, because you'd have to settle with the band, you'd have to deal with payroll, and that you weren't above smuggling money to get that done. Can you tell us a little more in detail what that
Ooh, yeah.
Hey, again, you're safe now. Nobody
Okay.
can get that. Yeah,
We had a deal
Supposedly.
to pay the
allegedly.
world tour, the payroll would all be in U.S. dollars.
Yeah.
Now you're in 52 different countries, so you have to get the U.S. dollars there.
Yeah.
So I fly into set the show on one of the islands. The Falcon War had broken out, so we couldn't go to South America at the time. So we'd play on all these little islands. So I flew in to meet the money guy, and I had a money belt. And I got the 50 grand, which is their payroll, whatever. But he only gave me 48 because he kept 2 for himself. Okay? Well, what are you going to do? You take what you can get.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, the money belt had a little metal buckle behind it. Okay? And not Velcro. It had Velcro after that, though.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm going through trying to get back to the island. I missed one performance on one island and going back to another island. And the magic wand comes out and it goes off.
Beep, beep.
And they said, beep. Now, I have 50 grand, 48 grand on me. They could have confiscated it. I could have gone to prison. And they said, what's this? I go, it's my damn money belt. You think I'm going to carry my cash around on me in my pocket here?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They didn't inspect it. Let me go. Phew.
Sweating bullets, yeah.
And then the company, because I missed one performance, half of them were betting that I was going to take off with the money. But the people that really knew me knew I wouldn't.
Yeah, of
you know?
course not. That would never be in your game.
So yeah, that was a close call.
Yes, yeah, and you
do what
pulled
you have to.
You do, and the people that you were doing that in the name of probably never knew that terrifying little moment that you survived.
No, it was
Yeah.
just like the audience. They never have to know how hard things are. It's the magic. They pay now more money than ever, but even then it was good money. Enjoy the magic. They don't have to know how hard or what we do.
It
right?
still amazes me today, when
That's a
when we
very
go out
true
and set up
statement.
a show, and you got people rolling in at 7, chalk and floor and everything, and you're able to watch the whole process throughout the whole day.
It's like a
and then
flower opening,
right,
yeah.
and then at whatever doors are, all these people rush in, and they're talking to each other and stuff. There's 140 points hanging over their heads.
Oh, yeah.
There's thousands of pieces of equipment up and running, and it's just funny to me that nobody ever stops to think they did this morning.
Yeah.
You know?
Except us, if we go to some strange thing, and then that's all we can look at.
That's all
the
we
whole
do.
Time. Like, John's over there
When we
doing
go,
his thing, and
we're
we're like,
looking at
damn,
the
I would have
lights, we
put
look at
those.
the
I
sound,
would have
checking
flown
out the
that.
backstage,
Little, yeah.
Everything,
Yeah.
and
So when you go to a concert, folks.
but that's us,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is. Did you? I'm curious. Did you have a preference? Again, your careers, you did a lot of live rock and roll, but you also did your fair share of many tours with the Broadway scene.
Yeah.
Did you have a preference? Was one a better fit for you than the other?
Well, the best thing about doing the Broadway shows
Yeah.
is, especially doing the national tours, like I lived in San Francisco 1 month every year for like 15 years, because
Wow.
we'd always play a month in these big cities.
Sure.
And when you keep on doing them over the years,
Yeah.
the local knows you. So I come in and show up on stage, okay, who's going to take me skiing? Who's going to take me on their boat, you know?
yeah.
And it's like, there'd always be somebody there, so you'd have a blast. You had the days off. You just have to come do the show at night.
Sure.
You only have one used load in to do, one used load out at the end of the month. So that was kind of like nice. I used to rollerblade 30, 50 miles a day on my blades.
No kidding.
Check out, oh, yeah.
Wow.
Well, then, yeah.
Wow. So I think the answer is Broadway because it was just more civilized.
Yeah, well, yeah, because, rock and roll, you're doing it every single night.
Yeah, we're
and it's
getting
like,
killed out there.
With your tours,
Yeah, yeah.
I used to have 8, 10 trucks. You have how many trucks?
More than that.
Yeah, more, yeah.
It depends on the tour, but it can be one small one or 52 big ones.
Oh, man, yeah.
Depends what's necessary.
The 52 big ones aren't any fun.
Yeah.
They're a lot of work,
Yeah, well,
especially when you're just doing one-nighters.
yeah, you're blown. Well, it's like Byrne said, I don't think a lot of people understand these things often, not always, but often, are coming in the morning and blowing out of the night. First one in, last one out.
Oh, yeah.
And there's
yeah.
a lot of action in between.
And sometimes, I do like Bruce Springsteen, Elton John, say Billy Joel, and it happened where they were just booked all together. So you'd be sleeping, catch an hour sleep in a cable crate with some packing blankets between gigs.
Oh, good.
And then after you crash and burn, you can sleep for 12 hours and you wake up, and even if you're young and strong, every bone is
I think it was.
Oh,
I
it's
think
all
our
pain.
biggest loss of analog consoles was having the lid.
The 6-person party console
No,
party?
just the lid to sleep in.
Oh, yeah, there's
You know, and
Yeah.
when they went to digital consoles, you had to be fetal position all the time.
nothing
In a
like it.
Midas XL, you're stretched out
Good
one
old
into the other.
H3000 with more in there. You get like 3 people in there comfortably. No problem
Yeah, but
whatsoever.
you sleep
With a
wherever
side
you,
table and everything.
You sleep wherever you can grab in those situations.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's a great, I don't know if you can see it, Mike, you probably can't catch it, but this is a backstage pass from Bruce Springsteen to Silky that I think Bruce Springsteen might be 14 here. I'm joking, but this is a really, really early, just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I always thought Bruce Springsteen was one of our best songwriters. I never personally totally got it, but I understand what he's doing, and he is a national treasure. He hates when I say that.
That's
but
one of his earlier tours. Okay,
Yes,
when he first
yes.
started touring.
Yeah, just,
and
wow. Just really.
he'd come up to the truck, we'd be low in the truck, and say, we had a place called Toad's Place. It was a big nightclub. And you could little walk through the Coliseum, through downtown to it, and you'd ask for directions.
Yeah.
Well, later on, as he saw bigger and bigger Coliseums and stuff, I happened to work them. And, you're working, and after a few hours of working, you scope out the star dressing room. Because usually they have some leftover ice cold beer or something like that.
Sure, I found some great
4
stuff in dressing
hours
rooms.
after the show,
Really great stuff.
I go in there as I'm reaching in for a beer. I turn around, and there's Mr. Springsteen on the floor. Didn't have anything on, just staring at the wall, okay? So I talked to my buddy, who was a roadie of his, and Bruce never did any
No,
stuff.
Bruce was a deep thinker.
But
Bruce would get in his head
boy,
hard.
was he a great
Hard.
performer.
Yeah.
And I guess he's got a tour going out right now, just started.
Well, he's actually a very big. He is very open about the fact that he's had some off and on depression in his life, and he's a big advocate of treating that properly and the different steps. And this is a man who's had a 40-year career of some of the most seminal rock and roll projects of all time, and sold probably 80 million albums at least. Does some of the biggest shows in the game, and he's a human being just like any of us, prone to some of the foibles and things that can happen. And he's struggled through like a friggin' soldier and come back stronger than ever every time. But there's some
One of the nice guys in the business.
yeah,
really.
no, he's super real, super
Yeah.
legit.
What you see is what you get.
Yeah, you
And
know,
and
Asbury
it's
Park,
every ounce of energy.
you
you
know,
sell on
Stone
stage.
Pony,
Epically
Asbury
long
Park.
shows.
Yeah, you know, and just one of the consummate professionals in the game. And what more can you really ask for? We're running up on time right now, but I want to ask one quick one. This is from my deep place in my heart. The great Jeff Lynne of Electric Light Orchestra. Talk about a band that just messes with my head. When telephone comes on, the song Telephone, you know, and then you hear the telephone ring. And as a producer, you know, between the Traveling Wilburys, this guy's written over 2,000 songs for other artists. I mean,
Yeah.
Wow.
he's so friggin' prolific, and he's one of the most extraordinary. What was Ed, when you worked with the Great ELO? Did they have the stars? Did the spaceship come out? Did you have that as one of your
No,
props?
it was kind of early on. It was the beginning of the lasers.
This is 1970.
And they were the
had
first
problems
band
with the
to use
lasers, didn't
lasers. Okay?
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and after, you had to do it off mirrors. But in the old days, you could burn out people's eyes and stuff like that, because it's all new. There's no laws. You know
That's
what
the
I
sharks
mean?
with freaking lasers.
Oh, yeah.
Lasers.
But they absolutely fantastic performance. You know, I was wearing a Super Trooper for them several times. And I enjoy their music like you did. you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, just phenomenal.
It's crazy. Like there's actually a really good documentary on Netflix or one of those about Jeff Lynne, and
Really? Ooh, I gotta see that.
yeah, it's all him. It's just him, and he goes through his whole career from the ELO to all the producing he did and everything. And you know, we all profess to know ELO. You know, we know
Yeah.
him. I was absolutely gobsmacked at the stuff this guy has done in his career. Like I felt like
Prolific.
I didn't know this.
Prolific.
I didn't know this person at all.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like
Right.
he was deep, super deep.
This is a person that George Harrison looked up to. Many Harry Nilsson. Some of the, to me, some of the most consummate badasses of music writing in the
He was a
game.
badass to them.
To them,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And that's in many ways says it all. In many ways says it all.
Just like you have your musicians and musicians. you
Yeah,
know?
we were
Right,
talking about this
right.
earlier. There's, you know, the Elvis Costellos of the world that a lot of
I agree.
the public doesn't always get, but this is if you're a musician, you get it, you understand it, and you're trying to learn from it.
Someone like you guys who work in the gig every single night, you know the band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
That's
what's
right.
real.
That's
you know?
right. That's exactly right. I wish we had more time, but the show shows that we get more viewership when we keep it within about an hour, because it's just people just don't want to commit to it. If it says an hour and 7 minutes, hour and 23 minutes, you get less viewers. And I want people to see your show, because this has been fascinating. You've been wonderful. You came all the way from Utah to be with us tonight. I can't tell you, Jack, I just mean this. I feel it in my heart. It was so sweet of you to come. I'm sorry, Mike, I slapped the mic. He's going to yell at me about that after. Probably did it multiple times and didn't even notice. But
Well, one of the reasons I came, because I have nothing for respect. I've probably seen about 20 odd of your shows, okay? But I did some little research too, because, you know,
Yes, sir.
and it's like, I got to meet this guy, you know?
Sure.
I got to meet this guy. So, and it's been my honor that I'm glad we had a chance to, you know, sit down and
Yeah.
spend some time together. And I look forward to seeing you anytime I'm in San Francisco.
Oh, you know, please know that
Or
our
if you're
door
out
is
on a tour,
always
give
open
me
to
a
you.
holler.
Oh my God, you are so good. The resources of the Great Sound Image Productions, the resources of Beyond the Backstage Pass, the resources of the badass that is Bernie Broderick and Truth and Audio, his freestanding company. We are here for you, my friend, and I know that
Absolutely.
you would be there for us. This is
Absolutely.
the brother code of the roadie game, and we just adore you and can't say enough about your wonderful career. Thank you for your contribution to rock and roll and Broadway, and that you brought more smiles to people. I would probably guess in the millions of smiles to people.
Thank you
and
so
that's
much, Vince.
very, very sweet, my friend. Thank you. It's truly an honor to have you on our show.
My pleasure,
Thank you,
really.
my friend.
really.
Really-
We just scratched the surface, buddy.
yeah, I know. Maybe we'll do something. Make it
Some
a little
other
easier
day.
on you, but maybe do a part 2 over some Zoom or something like that. It
Yeah.
won't be as good, but your stories will hold it up. And
Okay,
so
cool.
it was just a treat to have you here, my friend.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. Thank
It's
you.
an absolute pleasure. Bernie?
That was exhausting.
Yeah, I'm tired.
Yeah, that was exhausting.
I'm gonna need another smoke, guys.
I'm gonna need a small nap. You know, you were saying that you like to limit the show to an hour because people watch stuff, but we know the truth. After an hour, it starts to devolve.
Get in the weeds a little bit.
And then
That's been known to
what was
happen.
it? The microphone in the Lady Bits conversations start to.
Yeah, some stuff is not fit for TV, is what
tom-toms.
he's saying. Yeah.
It's all very technical.
Yeah,
but,
very technical.
but
But and I want to thank you for coming in and debuting your amazing product. Bernie, I really think there's good things ahead for you with this. You come up with some of the most fascinating gear. You know, I've always been right there with you. The Curie, I like to think I was one of the first people that bought into that.
Gotta let him check it out.
No, it's. I'm going to show you. Make sure that we show you this special creation called Curie that I've gotten. I should have had this on the table. My bad. But some really fascinating stuff that Bern does. He's a damn genius, and
Thanks, brother.
this is beautiful.
I didn't even recognize him. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, you're that guy.
Yeah,
You
it's
clean
him.
up real good, man.
Yeah. He does clean up pretty good. He can roll in all deep. When he's deep in work, Bern's just doing the work. That's what the
You
genius does.
still welding the thing right before the show.
There's very, well, no, he's also a very productive individual. And so, yeah, it's a great stuff. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being here. Michael, thank you for that's Michael, the great
Mike.
Michael Brown. We couldn't do this without Mikey Brown. He is our octopus. That's the thing you see behind Bernie there. And we love him. And we're going to do this every Thursday the best we can. We're starting to get real busy, here. This is the nature of this time of year. So we'll do what we can the best we can. You look for the ads, and we're going to put them out there when it makes sense, and it's not too much of a trouble because we like to keep the level of the game up. So we do this on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. We will see you again in the future. Until then, be safe, be good to each other, and we'll see you again. Good night.
Peace out.